Hi, Neasa and David. Thanks so much for joining us here today and for allowing us to screen your wonderful film, School Life. Thank you.
Our pleasure.
So when I first heard about the film, I was so intrigued and fascinated by it because I used to hitch past Headfort School on the way home from college every week. And I was always interested in learning more about the school. So I was delighted when I learned about your film. It's such a beautiful story of the impact of teachers on children and on the lives of children in a boarding school. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about how you came to actually choose, first of all, a school, but also a boarding school as the topic of your film.
Yeah, well, it happened because we were looking for a school for our children, really, because they were in a kind of an all-Irish speaking school in Donegal, and it was quite a homogenous community. And our son he just hated school. You know, he was 6 years old and he did not want to go to school, and he really, you know, he wasn't fitting in. So we started looking for schools in the area first, and then we just kept going wider and wider, and we visited some Steiner schools, and then David found this school, Headfort. So we went down to have a look at it. I mean, we knew it was a boarding school, but at this stage we had already realized that wherever we sent our children to school, we would have to move. So we were prepared to move to wherever the right school would be. So we went and met with Dermot Dix, the headmaster of Headfort, and he was just amazing.
Yeah, he was great. I mean, he would call himself a Marxist, and definitely not religious. So it was non-denominational and very open, willing to embrace whatever was offered. So the great sort of understanding of the other and acceptance of the other from Dermot. And he had seen a couple of our films, an animation that I had done that won a BAFTA, and couple of NASA's documentaries that had won awards. He said, "Oh, I know your work." And we were, wow, this is great. And he started the conversation then about the fact that a film had never been made about the school, and he thought it was a very unique educational environment. And we said, wow, we would love to make a film. Is that possible? And he said, yeah, let's do it. So
yeah, so that's how it started, because both David and I had been to boarding school, and David had a pretty awful experience because you were 7 when you were packed off to boarding school, and I was a bit later. I was 11, so we had very different views of boarding school. So we were
boarding school in Ireland, was it?
For me, it was in Ireland.
I went to England, boarding school.
Yeah, but David's parents lived in Africa, so it was. I mean, it was quite a. He didn't get home. Weekends.
Saw them once a year in the summer. It wasn't great for 7-year-olds. So
no,
I didn't have a good boarding school experience. So we were, when Dermot said, yes, you can come and make a film here, we were both interested in that from our own personal backgrounds. And I was convinced I would meet lots of traumatized children. Headfort is a primary boarding school, so the children are between 7 and 12, 13. And I thought, okay, these kids are going to be messed up. They're sent to boarding school at a young age. Whereas Neasa had a good experience. She went to boarding school at 11. And so she thought, no, they'll be fine, especially the older ones, because I've done that and been there myself. So.
And we knew Dermot was quite careful about. He didn't really like taking children at 7 unless they were really ready for it. Originally, he thought we were sending our son Tig as that we would send them as boarders, and so he was kind of, "Are you sure now that he'd be ready?" And we were like, "No, we're going to come here. We're going to find a house, and we're going to send them as day pupils." So that's how the whole
because it is the only primary boarding school in Ireland. Is that right?
The only one left. Yeah, I think there was one other one. Aravon, and that had just closed, or it closed, I think maybe while we were there, the first year of research. That had closed.
Yeah, you really get a feel when you watch the film, especially when you see Dermot's interaction with the children, just the level of respect, the openness to their opinions and their thinking. That ethos really, really comes across in the film.
Yeah, well, Dermot would have been a boarder in that school. He would have gone there at the age of 7.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And he would have been taught by our main characters, John Leyden and Amanda Leyden. So they were teaching the current headmaster.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I was going to ask you about John and Amanda next. So how did you well, first of all, I wanted to ask you about how you came to film it and actually got in there and actually did the process of filming. But can you tell us how John and Amanda came to really be centered in the film? They're extraordinary characters and extraordinary teachers as well.
Yeah. Well, they had absolutely no interest in us or in the idea of a film being made in Headfort. So it did take us the guts of over a year before we finally, got the door open, because they just they're not interested in adults anyway. They're really more interested in children. So they tend to ignore the parents unless they have to interact with them, usually at parent-teacher meetings, but that's it. So I suppose, so for the first year, we were just kind of seeing the effects of how our children were flourishing in the school, and that was really quite amazing to watch. And also we were putting out feelers, trying to get funding for a film, like seeing would people be interested in this, and we thought that we'd have a shoe-in. We thought everybody would be jumping at this opportunity, but they weren't. Nobody was interested in a film about a private school. So it ended up taking us much longer to find the funding. So I think we were there almost like we were well into our second year. We decided just to start filming anyway, even though we had no money at this stage. And
well, we filmed enough to edit a
trailer.
A trailer pilot.
Well, so you actually just did the filming. You just shot regardless before you had the funding secured.
Exactly.
Yeah,
because commitment.
We went a whole year with the written proposal for the film and some photographs, trying to get funding from the Irish RT, the Irish broadcaster, and Screen Island, the Irish Film Fund. Both of them turned it down. We were going, well, if we can't get funding in Ireland for an Irish film, then what are we going to do? So towards the end of that first year, we said to Dermot, look, we're struggling with raising the money, and I think it's because people haven't seen what happens here, the magic of the place. So can we shoot a trailer? And he said, yeah, of course. So we shot some material for a couple of weeks, edited a trailer, and then that helped hugely. People could see what we meant. And
we started attending pitching forums, like European pitching forums, and I think the first bit of interest we got was in Spain.
Spanish pitching
pitching forum, and then once like one person shows a bit of interest, then things start building, and it starts, people start getting a little bit of confidence in the idea, and they come in.
Is that generally your experience of the documentary filmmaking process in terms of funding? Are you having to go around the roads in terms of getting funders on board?
Yeah. It isn't easy, and nobody really gets how we work. I mean, we do almost all our films have been long-term observational documentaries. Not all, but the majority. And that we take 2-3 years to 4 years to make a film, and that needs a bigger budget than normal. So we're asking for funders to trust us and have confidence, in the final result. So it's not easy.
Yeah.
And so in this film, I mean, obviously, sorry, Neasa, did I interrupt you?
No, but it was kind of a good thing that that it did take that long, because I don't think we would have got John and Amanda on board in the first year. Like, it really took time for them to get to know us and to for trust to develop. But once that had been established, they could not have been more available and more behind it. They were amazing. And we knew that we had spoken to a lot of alumni who had been to the school, and like they were the names that kept coming up. Everyone talked about John and Amanda Leyden and the impact that they'd had. So we knew they were crucial to the film. Like, we would not be able to do a portrait of Headfort without getting them on board.
Yeah.
One of the fascinating aspects of the film is how close up and personal you got with all of the subjects in the film, including Amanda and John, but also how present you were around the children at all parts of the day, in the classroom, outside of the classroom, on the grounds itself. How did you develop those relationships with the children so that, you almost became invisible to them?
Yeah, I think we knew that we needed to like not to be a novelty, or that we didn't need, you know, in the school, like we knew that we needed the community to accept that we were part of sort of, you know, the everyday school day. So we asked Dermot if we could have a room in the school where we could retire to when we weren't filming, and so that we would be able to react to stuff that happened, you know, because you know, you don't film all day. Like, you know, there's usually, like, if you're lucky, you get 3 minutes of useful stuff in, you know, in a whole 24 hours. So so we had an office in the school, and I think then it was just a matter of the children just accepted us as, you know, just part of the furniture in the area. They also knew us as Taiganelia's
mom and dad,
you know, mom and dad, you know, which probably helped. So we were kind of parents that were there.
It was the fact that there were just two of us. Neasa did all her own cinematography. I was recording sound, and
Wow.
we were, after, there was no other crew, it was just us. And after probably 2 or 3 weeks, the kids got used to us. The first week they were all, oh wow, look at the camera, and jumping around and trying to touch the boom and laughing, and they just forgot. They're 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds. They just get on with their lives. And it was so lovely to see that they just accepted that we were there, and they just carried on.
Yeah, and we didn't use any kind of lights, you know, there was never a setup. We were ready to shoot whenever we were there. So
and
I think that helped.
Neasa's always been very, very good at knowing how close to, sometimes when to stay back and hang back in situations. And so,
well, I mean, I made it very clear to the children that, you know, if we ever, that they could always come and talk to us, and if we ever filmed something they weren't comfortable with, to tell us, to just let us know. And, you know, that happened once or twice with, you know, after something happened, a child would come up afterwards and say, you know, I don't really want that to be in a film, and we were fine. You know, there was no problem. So I think there was this level of trust that was built up with the kids as well. And, you know, it was a small,
and obviously their parents and caregivers that were so willing to let you to be in the school.
Yeah, well, I think that was more Dermot. If Dermot was okay with us being there, I think the parents really trusted him, and you know, I mean they didn't know us from Adam really, so it was really, if Dermot said it was okay, then they would be okay about it. And we had always promised Dermot that we were never going to, like, not to worry about if something happened, and, you know, that we were never going to suspend a child in a negative story arc, that we would always wait and see if, you know, if it worked itself out, and that it was, you know, the complete journey, and to trust us on that. And he did. And yeah, so, you know, we were able to, you know, work around it, and yeah, just find the stories that everybody would be comfortable that we told. So
can you tell us a little bit about how the film was received when you started to bring it to the festival circuit in competition?
Yeah, so we were delighted to be invited to Sundance, which, as many people know, is a hugely important film festival. Only 12 films are invited every year into the World Cinema Competition, that was our first ever invitation to a festival of that caliber, and with any of our films, and this was our 4th feature doc together, so that was a huge launch pad, you know, into a very long, successful festival circuit. It went to some of the bigger festivals around the world, like Sydney Film Festival, and we were invited. We traveled a lot with the film. We did Q&As, but of course the highlights for us were Dublin, when John and Amanda and Dermot Dix came along to the screening and came up on stage afterwards,
and it was really lovely. Like, wherever we went in the world, there was always an ex-Headfort alumni would come and would talk about their experience in Headfort, and how that they felt, even if they had been there like 30 years ago or 40 years ago, that it had still captured the essence of what their experience had been, because they had been taught by John and Amanda. And that was really, really gratifying, because all that feedback went back to John and Amanda, and like, John remembered every single one of them. It was unbelievable.
From 40 years ago.
He has an incredible mind, like, because they really do regard all the alumni as their children. Like, it's extraordinary. I've never met.
You feel that care.
Oh my God. They and they track kids and see how they're doing. And even when we were there filming, there'd always be like a well-trodden path of ex-Headfort kids, now adults, coming to see them and hang out with them. Sometimes they'd stay with them, sometimes they'd just call in for tea or dinner. So that was really lovely to see. And it was really lovely for us that, somehow we had captured a legacy, because soon after that, John and Amanda retired and from the school, and, a gold watch wouldn't have done anything for them, but having the film and having all these kids that they, taught over whatever 50 years, getting in touch with them was really, really special. So
that struck me that so much of teachers' work is invisible, right? We don't see it immediately. It's what comes out later often. And the fact that you documented so much of their experience, but then to have all that feedback from the children is extraordinary for them as well, to have that. It must have been a very emotional moment when you screened it in Dublin. Yeah.
Well, it was, like Neasa said, almost everywhere it was emotional. And especially because these people would walk up and they'd be in their 50s and come up and say, yeah, I was in that school 40 years ago, and John and Amanda made such a huge difference to my life. Some of them would even say, I wouldn't be the person I am today if it wasn't for them. So that was really, really moving. So
yeah, the original title for the film was In Loco Parentis, and I think that's kind of captures a better thing, because like they were the ultimate in loco parentis.
Yeah, in place of the parents people looking after the children.
Did you do a screening for the community at the school when the film was completed?
Not in the school. We booked a local cinema, and we showed it there because we wanted them to see it and feel that it was a big film on the screen. And it was great, and it worked really well. And parents came, kids came, teachers came. So that was nice.
Yeah.
Wow. Wonderful. And this leads me on to my next question in relation to the types of films that you make. Our viewers will know that we are going to program your extraordinary documentary, Young Plato, as part of the 17th Festival here in March. And it's also based in a school. Could you tell us a little bit about it? Not to give too much away, obviously, because it's going to be in the festival, but just to tell us a little bit more about that process as well and that documentary.
Okay, well, I'd say if there was as you said, school life was about two inspirational teachers and the impact that they can have on children's lives. But if there was a fly in the ointment, it was the fact that it was a private school. And, I think it could be easily dismissed as like, well, that's all very well for, kids from, wealthy backgrounds who go to this idyllic school. Which that's not really what the film is about. But so when the opportunity came up to film with Kevin in Holy Cross Boys School in Ardoyne, a state school, we were like, yes, absolutely. This would be a great thing. And the whole combination of philosophy and Ardoyne, they were just, they were just two juxtaposing kind of ideology, or two juxtaposing. Oh God!
Well, it's a very working class community who are challenged on so many levels. They live in very small houses. There's a huge level of unemployment. So there's economic deprivation. There's a lot of drug dealing. There's a lot of dissident paramilitary activity. So it's a challenging part of the world to live in. Whereas Headfort, obviously, wealthier parents, wealthier children, families,
idyllic background,
beautiful setting,
and here you are dealing with a community that were suffering from intergenerational trauma. So and then most people associate philosophy with a very sort of elitist, highfalutin kind of subject for the other and not for the Joe Soaps of this world. So
we were just totally taken by what Kevin was doing there, using philosophy and critical thinking to get children to rethink the narratives and ask questions about their lives and what was going on around them. So I don't know if we want to talk too much about the content of the film, but I think that hopefully gives a little idea of it.
Yeah, it's an exceptional documentary, and you have won lots and lots of awards for it. And we're so privileged and honored that we're going to screen it as part of the festival, and hopefully see you both over in DC as well with the film.
Well, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, it was extraordinary. I actually watched it with my my 11-year-old son, who absolutely loved it. It was wonderful. Well, thanks so much for sharing the film with us. It is an absolutely beautiful film. And it's such a remarkable reflection of the type of filmmakers that you are. And it's a beautiful lead into Young Plato that's coming up for us in March. And we're so excited to show that to the community, and to also have you to do a Q&A with us afterwards in Silver Springs. So thanks so much, Neasa and David, and look forward to seeing you in March.
Thank you very much, Maeve.
Thanks.
And good luck with all the organizing and everything.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. See you. Bye.
Bye.